Whew, okay, Tesla just finished their We Robot Tesla event, and I know a lot of people out there are disappointed because we didn't get a lot of specs and hardcore numbers, but I went in with my expectations low because in the past, Tesla events were late and poorly prepared, so I expected it to be late, and it was, for valid reasons. There was a medical emergency, and I was actually pleasantly surprised with this event because, like, on the podcast, we were bickering back and forth on whether or not there was actually going to be an autonomous vehicle that let people ride around. And not only was there CyberCabs, which of course look beautiful and we'll get into in a second, but there was 20 of them, freaking 20, driving around the Warner Brothers studio lot, along with an additional 30 Model Ys that had some kind of specialized FSD code because they were driving around autonomously. Lots of people at the event were posting videos of how it works. It's really cool because the CyberCab has self-presenting and self-closing doors. So you just walk up to it, get in, click your seatbelt, and plug in where you want to go. And they have this whole, Westworld futuristic autonomy focused UI where you just tapped where you wanted it to go and then the door shut itself and drove you there. And I'm sure, it's a closed course and everything. So who knows about the capability and how quickly this will all be ready. Elon's always way too optimistic on timelines. We know all of that. But with the expectation going in of this is just Tesla's vision of the future, who knows how long it's going to take to get there. It's a pretty freaking cool event, right? I mean, they had humanoid robots walking around. The Kilowatts was mentioning that they seem to be remote controlled though. So they're like waving and doing Rochambeau and stuff, but I don't think it's with their own minds. But there were robots dancing and serving drinks and handing out snacks and that kind of thing. Looked like a very fun event to attend. Sadly, I was not invited. Probably not on Tesla's nice list anyway, but I don't care. I have to give a massive round of applause to Franz for the incredible design of the CyberCab. Or is it the Robotaxi? I keep hearing them interchange those names. I'm not sure what to believe. On the website, it says Robotaxi. On the license plate, there's like a Cybertruck font spelling out Robotaxi. So I'm still not exactly sure what we call it. I don't care, but it's gorgeous. I love the fact that there's no side view mirrors. I love how aerodynamic it is. And there's a ton of storage space in the back. You got this big old hatch that opens up, but it surprisingly only appears to be a two-seater. I don't really see any evidence of a bench seat, and it's cool that the doors open upright, although it feels like they open up a lot wider than most other vehicles with vertical opening doors do. I'd be a little bit concerned about parking this thing, but that was kind of a vibe Elon was doubling down on at this event, that in the future we won't need parking lots because vehicles are just going to be driving all day and we don't have to leave our car in a parking lot for hours at a time. It'll just go off and drive where it's needed. That's going to be all up to how good FSD software is and regulatory approval and all that. I think it's kind of a long-term thing, but I think a lot of people who are likely disappointed, it's because this event was light on specs, but I'm personally okay with it. I know that it would have been more interesting for Tesla to dive into what's the battery pack of this vehicle. Does it use 4680s or does it use prismatic LFP batteries? How long is it? What's the width? What's the range? What's the peak charging speed? All of those numbers would have been useful and fun to dive into, but in the past, Tesla promising numbers with their unveilings never seemed to work out too well for them. So I don't blame them to not wanting to commit to too many specs, although the one number he did provide was already a little bit discouraging because he said, yes, we're going to have these robotaxis that we own ourselves, but also anybody's going to be able to buy one for under $30,000. Like in the past, when we talked about doing like cheaper cars and robotaxis, he was saying like it'd be a $25,000 vehicle. Now the number's changing to under 30, which in my opinion probably means $29,990. And we all know how much the Cybertruck ended up being way more expensive than they originally thought. So there's a decent chance that even if they could sell robotaxis, they may not be as affordable as we'd all like. But also keep in mind, we are so far away from Tesla being able to actually deliver vehicles that don't have steering wheel or pedals, because right now you can't even deliver a vehicle without freaking side view mirrors. They don't have regulatory approval anywhere to use FSD unsupervised, so I think we've still got quite some time before that's ready. But an interesting detail that I'm a little bit concerned about is they said that the CyberCabs don't have charge ports, which is like, oh, we were all worried about the iPhone going portless from the beginning. Turns out we should have been more worried about the CyberCab because Elon briefly glossed over this one part of the presentation where he said, oh yeah, it'll have inductive charging, so it can just charge itself just by parking over this little charge pad. But he didn't give enough time in the presentation for us to see the visual. They clearly had a slide in the presentation that said how many kilowatts it could do, but the camera angles, they were cutting between them wrong, and then he just jumped straight to another cool part, which is they have like an automated cleaning process. So they just have this big robot arm that goes in and cleans up the CyberCab after it's being used, which was really cool and exciting. But still, the usability of the CyberCab, in my opinion, goes down because without a physical charge port, you're not only leaving out all of the supercharger infrastructure across the country, now you got to build in all new inductive charging pads anywhere you want to deploy robotaxis at scale. But on top of that, if you're just relying on inductive charging, then you're not really going to charge very quickly, which means, again, we don't know the range of these CyberCabs. For all we know, it could be a 10 kilowatt hour battery pack in there, or it could be an 80 kilowatt hour battery pack in there. We really just don't know. But regardless, if there's no physical charge port to do DC fast charging, then you can't exactly road trip in the CyberCab. Like, it's pretty much just going to be good for around town driving, which I guess they've optimized for. I mean, I understand the vast majority of drives in major cities are not very far. It's like, go to my workplace from my apartment, or go to the hotel, or go to the airport from this park and whatnot. So those drives, I get it, are not very long. Maybe Tesla's long-term vision is you won't need to DC fast charge the battery. You'll just drive until the robotaxi battery gets low, and then you'll pull into a station with inductive charging. It starts charging, but then you have to get out and get into another fully charged robotaxi, and then that one keeps driving, and I guess that would be faster than waiting for fast charging, assuming you don't have a lot of cargo and payload to move to the trunk. But I was personally surprised with how massive the display was on the interior. I wouldn't be surprised if that changes with the production model, because I feel like it could be like a safety thing, I don't know, but I guess they want to have in-car entertainment, and they want you to be able to navigate wherever you want, but I just feel like, couldn't all of that be done on a mobile app anyway? You just get in the car, and there's no door buttons, by the way. There's no like handles on the outside or inside of the doors. All of it appearingly was just done virtually. So I imagine in Tesla's grand vision, you summon the robotaxi, it comes up next to you, and you open the doors from your phone, and you get inside, plug in the destination, and then it closes the doors themselves. But having powered trunk and doors, I do think is really appropriate for this autonomous future, because there's a very real scenario where people just get out of the car and probably won't take the time to close the door. So it makes far more sense. Let the robotaxi be capable of closing the door anyway, because people are just going to be hopping in and out of these things all the time, and they may not close the door properly anyway. I love how much storage space they maximized in the back, and I love that they're going with this kind of vinyl wrap texture. Again, Tesla was light on the details. We don't know if this is steel. It doesn't look like paint. It could be a composite structure, but it looks gorgeous, and I'm sure it's super aerodynamic. I would have loved to know the coefficient of drag, how many miles per kilowatt hour they get in this thing would have been fascinating. But another confusing design element is the rear wheels are in fact larger. So we know that that yellow wrapped Tesla leak ended up being real, because on the rear they're 21-inch wheels for a two-door, two-seater vehicle. Why are the rear wheels so big? I'm sure there's a reason. I just don't exactly know what it is. I feel like that would make rotating tires and maintenance long-term a lot more difficult, but as you guys know, Tesla can change a lot between what's unveiled and what's delivered. I hope we've all learned our lesson with the Cybertruck to not fall too much in love with these designs. There's a lot of beautiful imagery on the website you can go and check out, but don't be surprised if it all changes by the time it actually launches. But I'm also curious, like, does this vehicle have a frunk? Because frunks usually aren't powered, at least, and they seem to have put a ton of storage space in the back, so maybe this is the first Tesla that doesn't really have one. I do see a bumper camera in the images though, although some people were speculating that they might have embedded cameras into the light bar in the front to improve visibility with AI 5 is what Elon is calling it. I think he was really trying to pump the stock when he said like, oh yeah, we're putting in more graphics power or more neural engine power in each of the AI 5 computers because we want to turn into a Amazon Web Services business where you can rent out all of this neural processing on each car. And it's like, okay, how's that gonna work when they're all being done remotely? They better have good internet connection. I don't know, it just felt like he was saying, buy the stock please, we're just like Amazon and Nvidia combined. But I personally wish they would be more interested in doing solar, because they're body colored roofs. It's like the first Tesla in a long time that doesn't have a glass roof. I would love to hear their logic on that. Is it because it helps keep the cabin cooler, or is it cheaper this way? I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of manufacturing tech going into this to make it as cost effective as possible, like perhaps not having DC fast fast charging means that the battery doesn't need to have as fancy as a battery management system or coolant system. So that can help them use much smaller battery packs or cheaper battery packs that aren't as thermally constrained, because if they're only charging inductively, which most of the time is probably going to be like 10, maybe 20 kilowatts, and that's pushing it, that just helps keep the wiring and infrastructure and everything really simple. It just sucks when you feel like we just got the whole automotive market to move over to NACS, but now Tesla's like, yeah, but you don't even need NACS anymore. If people want to use this robotaxi for their own use, now they can't use the wall connector that they already have at their house. They got to buy a whole new charger and everything. Whatever. But of course, Tesla had to have a one more thing at this event as well, so they one-upped the CyberCab with the RoboVAN. The RoboVAN. What did he call it? The RoboVAN? It's a weird name. But yeah, basically a RoboVAN, which is like this autonomous freight train looking thing, which is super futuristic and cool. Maybe a little bit too futuristic. I was kind of getting cyber quad vibes. It's like, oh yeah, we have one more thing, but Tesla, you still haven't delivered the cyber quad that you unveiled in 2019, or the Roadster that you took $250,000 deposits for, which there was no mention of at this event. I have a hard time getting super in love with this, but I do think the RoboVAN is gorgeous. Like, it really gets your gears turning about an autonomous future. Like, oh yeah, if there's no one to drive the van, then why have a windshield? You know, just turn it into this futuristic, clean-looking bus. And they said it can be used for personal use. It'll make a great Tesla service vehicle, which I'm sure is a ways out, but still, the idea of having like Tesla bots that come out and fix things out of that RoboVAN was really, really cool, and I love the look of it. It's so modern, so futuristic, and I love the idea of our city streets being changed. But then, like, reality keeps setting in. I'm like, yeah, but is it really gonna look like that? You're not gonna be able to easily turn that into like a manual version with a steering wheel and pedals without radically changing the design so that a driver could actually see everything. But the ground clearance also was a big concern. I know that the little sheets at the bottom seem to be flexible, but definitely wouldn't be good in a lot of cities where they could bottom out and go through big divots and stuff. It'd also be a concern if you're going camping and off-roading with it at all. I think the ground clearance would need to be way better than what the prototype shows, but it still looks cool. Optimizing a high passenger vehicle for probably lower speed transport kind of excites me. Like, it'd be perfect for the Boring Company. They don't have enough tunnels to really demonstrate it to its full capability, but yeah, Tesla's basically autonomous take on a bus was pretty cool and exciting, and the event looked like a lot of fun. People interacting with the robots, having like a movie set that people can drive around in, and the fact that they had 20 separate robo-taxis for people to ride around in, and they at least appearingly are autonomous. I don't know if there's some engineer in the back steering them around, but just the visual of getting into a car with no steering wheel or pedals, that's really, really cool. Probably helped sell a lot of investors and a lot of Tesla fans on the vision, and really cool little details they put in, like the headlights had these lasers coming out. Some people were speculating that maybe that's to help with detection of potholes and road debris in the dark. Those headlights might help with that. We also didn't see windshield wipers on the CyberCabs, but I realized maybe you don't need a wiper for the whole windshield anymore because a human isn't driving. Maybe you just need a little wiper to clean the camera lens at the top, and that covers it. You don't need to do any more than that. So there's all kinds of like design changes that start unlocking themselves once you're designing a fully autonomous vehicle, but at the end of the day, I was still seeing all of this empty space on the CyberCab that made me go, why don't you cover it in solar? It's probably a very efficient vehicle. It's small, it's probably super lightweight, knowing Tesla and their manufacturing expertise, but it's got a lot of surface area now with no more glass roof. License some solar panels from Aptera and just cover that thing, but I suppose then it might be a little too similar to what Aptera is actually working on. They just unveiled their production intent body assembly. Real progress coming together over there, which is exciting, and my guess is the Aptera is going to have way more range than the CyberCab, and I like that the Aptera will have a port, so I can plug it in and charge it when needed, and also fast charge it if I'm on a road trip, because I do a lot of those, and I don't want to have to switch between CyberCabs every time the battery gets low. But of course, like many of you, I would have loved to hear more about Tesla selling a version of the robotaxi that has a steering wheel or pedals and mirrors so that they could just sell it to individuals now, and I'm sure they probably have plans and have talked about doing that, but to all the people going, where's the $25,000 compact car? That's what I wanted Tesla to release. Of course, they would not talk about that at this event because it would kill present day sales. Tesla's already having a hard time selling the Model 3 and Y as is. Can't you imagine how much harder it would get if you said, oh, and by the way, next year, we're going to start selling this car, you know, the two-seater with more storage, for $25,000 with steer-by-wire, and it'll have pedals, and with the tax credit, you know, it'll be like a $20,000 vehicle. Why would anybody buy a Model 3 or Y at that point? would like tank the sales. Obviously, it's a very beautiful design. I love the little sharp angular pieces along with the curved angles. It's like the perfect blend between the Cybertruck and the sexy lineup. I personally would be super interested in a super cheap Tesla. It doesn't even have to have a long range, but just a commuter Tesla that's got a ton of storage in the back and it's just 2 seats. But if it only consumed like 7 or 8 miles per kilowatt hour, that would be impressive. Tesla, please just find a way to sneak a charge port in there somewhere. Probably not going to happen, and even if it is, Tesla's not going to tell us about it until right before they launch it, because it's obviously going to affect present day sales. But what did you guys think of the event? Were you disappointed? Were you overwhelmed? Do you wish there was more stats or specs, or do you understand why Tesla goes light on them, because they probably are going to change them anyway, and also, you know, they don't want to cause an Osborne effect? Feel free to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. It seriously helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. Have an excellent rest of your day.